Hello and welcome back to Dragon Talk. I have the amazing Alice Cleaver here on the line. Hello.
Hello, it's good to be here.
How are you doing? Welcome. Alice does a whole bunch of both dungeon mastering, game mastering, and playing for Scratticus Academy. Is that
Yes, that's correct. I'm the headmistress of the Scratticus Academy. Yeah, it's an amazing thing to be.
headmistress? I love that because you guys have the stylization that you're all a part of the school.
Oh yeah, for sure. The academy is a place to just come and learn TTRPGs in general and roleplay. So we figured the academy was a good name for it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like how the entire branding seems to be about making it more open and inclusive to people who are both new and old to the hobby.
Oh, for sure. That's basically our main thing is the whole inclusive and creating a safe environment for people to come and play, whether it's returning people to D&D or people who have we've got so many people that have just sort of started discovering it and really want to get into it. So we kind of provide that safe space where people can come and really explore it without any pressure at all.
Yeah, I love that. And is it? I mean, you're based in the UK, right?
Yes. Yes, we're in the
And so, is it about bringing more folks in from that community or all over the world?
all over the world. In fact, our very first game before we went full time and when we first ever got into like Twitch streaming, there were three of us from the UK and two of us were our friends from Sweden.
Hmm.
Um, it was kind of set up on the fact that we moved to a new area and we couldn't get a game anywhere. We couldn't find a game to set up, so we went online to find a game and just started making them ourselves when we couldn't find them.
That's cool. And were you friends with the folks from Sweden, or you just kind of, you know?
One of them I met in the game for the first time. The other
Wow,
one I've known for 7 or 8 years. So yeah.
very cool. Now, how long? What was your first kind of Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role playing experience like? I mean, it sounds like you've been doing this for a long time.
I played a lot of role playing games and sort of D&D style sort of board games like
Hmm.
Dungeon Quest and things like that. And I remember when I was about, I think I was about 8, 9 years old, I went to like a just like a garage sale or whatever, and I found a book that I really liked all the pictures in, and it turns out it's the 2.5e Monster Manual. So I read through that as I was younger, but I didn't really get into the role playing and the real D&D until I met my husband, which is probably nearly 10 years ago now.
Hmm. And what was that like when did he dungeon master for you to begin?
No, actually, it was his older brother,
Okay.
and it was a really good experience. It was incredibly addictive. We played it every single time we went round, um, but we were also in a different part of the country. So
Mm.
again, we tried to set up local games, but people weren't feeling it. I mean, not too long ago, before we set up the academy, I didn't have the best experience.
Mm.
There was some negative games, some negative energy, and it's another reason we make the Scrat Academy a safe space, because we also just heard from reaching out how many people have had a negative experience, not because of the game. They really wanted to play the game. It was sometimes the people that were surrounding them or playing with them. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're not alone. I think a lot of folks have had that experience, whether it be their idea of what a role playing game is not quite matching with what that first experience is like, as well as the gatekeeping and the more unpleasant kind of behaviors that can exhibit themselves at the table. So,
oh,
I love that you were able to kind of be like, all right, well, let's do something about that.
Yeah, it was it's what we're about, not just teaching people or getting people to like, we get a lot of new DMs in as well to
Mm.
give them a safe space, because as much as players themselves need a safe space, sometimes the DMs do as
Mm-hmm.
well. I think that can be forgotten sometimes, because DMing for the first time can be a really terrifying thing. It certainly was for me. Um, Now I absolutely adore it. But we just sort of create an environment where everyone is welcome. If you are a kind person, then come play. That's literally qualifications for
Mm.
it. If you want to tell a story, if you want to learn to role play or play a game, come and join us. So, and it's little things like we monitor our chat very strictly, so that if there a troll comes in straight away, or someone who is in there to wind people up, they're either gone straight away or they get a warning. We have our pronouns on display
Mm-hmm.
as well, because it's it's easy to mislabel someone or something to that effect. And just by having, I think, even the right pronouns makes people more comfortable and feel more accepted, because why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that happens in our daily lives. Even in the little bit we did before this, I was talking to some folks in the chat. I'm always like, oh, I mean, I got to make sure I default to a they, because it who knows
Mm.
how they identify, and you can't really tell that from just a handle or something like that. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, is all those guidelines and things like that. And I appreciate the moderation. I mean, shout out to the mods on the D&D channel. They do great work. But I also like that when you guys were founding, was that something that you guys implemented at first, or were you like, oh, we need to make sure we have mods after you had a few experiences online?
We've been quite lucky. I don't know whether it's because we've been pretty strict on it since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, like, you're going to get trolls in whatever community you're in,
Yeah.
and we were very aware of that before we even started. So I think just by moderating the chat early on and giving off that sort of, like, we laid out very, very quickly that it was not acceptable to be a troll, basically, to come in and be cruel or wind someone up or whatever. So um, we don't get a lot, but we've also attracted an amazing community that are also full of positivity and
Mm.
kindness and diversity. So we've got so many mods on the channel that have the same core values as well. So they keep an eye on it constantly for us as well, which is great.
I love that. I love that, and that's a big part of, I think, why I have been really proud of the D&D community. Recently, is because of that kind of top down kindness. That people have all been like, all right, we want to make sure we bring more people in. We be as understanding about different people's backgrounds and where they may come from, and how they might have different approaches to the game, or different styles that they would like to play. And what you're describing sounds very similar to what's been happening in the D&D community just as a whole, where if you start with leading with that best foot forward, it feels like more and more folks are attracted to that, and then therefore it just becomes what the community feels like for as many people as possible.
Oh gosh, yeah. This I say it over and over again, that this is the most welcoming community I've ever been in. Like, if there was, you have a tough day at work or something like that, you don't want to deal with anything. I used to switch off social media.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm part of this community. I'm like, oh no, I'll hop on Twitter. I'll see what the D&D community is doing at the
And seeing
moment,
their
because
creativity and the things that they're making,
yeah,
and yeah, it's just inspiring.
it's really inspiring. And also, especially with just the diversity of people in it, it brings so much to the game, the storytelling, everything, because the different points of view,
Mm-hmm.
they're amazing. It's things that I'd never think of or others would never think of, and people from all different backgrounds or different lives and everything. It just brings so much to it.
That's awesome. So going back a little bit to what your first experiences were like playing, what kind of characters did you gravitate towards early? Like what fantasy archetypes were the ones that drew you in?
Rogues and
Yeah.
halflings, constant rogues and halflings, because that was the one um, that I was just drawn to the most.
Why was that?
Actually, well, my first ever character was a barbarian when
Mm.
I first ever did it, but I don't know why after that I just gravitated towards rogues. I felt like I could play them just how I wanted to play a character, and then gradually I started playing lots of different classes, lots of different sort of races and things like that. But I was pretty latched on to a rogue. I'm not too sure why. I just thought they were really good. Was
Is it the sneaking?
literally it.
Is it the
Yeah, it's the sneaking, the sneak attack. It's yeah. That's probably it. It's all the dexterity and that side of it is probably my favorite. Um, so and
That's
I
cool.
actually went for a halfling the first time because my husband constantly says I'm a real life halfling. So he's like, you have to play a halfling. Try it as like my first character. So yeah.
It's because you like food and you have hairy feet?
Not the hairy feet thing. I'm very sure I have curly hair and I like food, but yes, no hair, no hairy feet.
Okay, phew, that was close. That's awesome. Well, I mean, as being a British person too, is there an affinity to the Lord of the Rings and those stories that drew you in?
I guess so. Yeah. Actually, one of the first, I guess I saw big books when I was about 7 years old. I read The Hobbit,
Mm.
and that was a game changer for me. My dad read it to me when I was 4 years old, and then I read it again when I was old enough to read it, and it changed my perspective on just fantasy in general because it's a classic.
Yeah.
But we actually stream more to America than the UK.
You mean your
So
audience is more American?
yeah, we our audience is more American than anything, as we work on the EST time zone,
Mm.
which is how I've met so many amazing people. A lot of them I call family now. So
Aw.
it's been really really great, and I've also discovered just a lot more by branching out and meeting other people from other places.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think it's true for a lot of Americans. I mean, I think Tolkien and The Hobbit, and especially for me, it was the Rankin Bass animated version of The Hobbit that I saw when I was, probably 4 or 5, and then wanted to now then read it and get into it. So, even us Americans feel very close to those stories. We're all halflings deep down.
Oh, everyone's a halfling at heart.
Exactly. Right. Even Joe Manganiello, the 6 foot tall beefcake that he is, he was drawn in by The Hobbit as well.
Yeah, it's a book that's inspired me so much, and then I went on to read Lord of the Rings, but I always kind of gravitate back to The Hobbit because
Mm,
it's got that sort of childhood nostalgia about it as well.
it does. Yeah, for sure. So was that a conscious choice for you guys to broadcast on the Eastern, time zone rather than your own?
Originally, it was because we worked during the day
Mm,
and we played games in the evening. So we would play D&D in the evening, and then we met a lot of Americans that way because it was on their time zone. And that's kind of where we stayed when we went full time.
mm-hmm.
Um, so that's more it than anything. And then we get a lot of English people on the channel as well. We reach out across the board. So normally we start at like 7 p.m. UK time, so sort of lunchtime on the EST time zone. So we do get a mix. We do get a sort of a crossover, but it does seem to be more American.
And have you I mean, I've heard from various folks who live in your neck of the woods about how Dungeons and Dragons is there. It's definitely prevalent, but it's not necessarily the or tabletop role playing games in general. Because I know you guys play a lot of different systems.
Mm.
You know, it's not as I don't know. It's not the first thing that folks think of in the UK. Is that true?
Oh gosh, yeah. It was quite a shock actually, in a good way. Like when I discovered how much bigger the tabletop community was in America,
Mm.
because there's just so much of it and the community is huge. I mean, over here, it's there, obviously. It is all there, but it's just not as hyped. There's not as big a community. I didn't feel like I could go into a game shop and sit down and play a game. It was
Mm.
something you played at home and you try and find people to play with and stuff like that. I mean, that we're going to Gen Con for the first time this year.
Oh, nice,
And
cool.
I've been told how big it is, and I don't think I'm prepared for how big it is. So yeah, it's not as big over here. There's definitely a lot of it here, but it's nowhere near close.
Why do you think that is? You know, because like, again, there's so much wonderful fantasy that has come out of Britain and the authors that write there. I mean, I think of C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and all those as like some of the forerunners for the fantasy genre in general. So those that groundwork is laid. Why do you think fantasy role playing hasn't caught on quite so much?
I'm not too sure, because lots of people I've met, I mean, it goes for all over, but in the UK as well, people either don't know about it, or I know some people watched like Stranger Things and were like, oh, it's that D&D game or whatever it was. And also, one of my negative experiences was actually I go into a couple of shops when I can, and I was actually looking for one of the D&D monster guides. And as I walked into the shop, the first thing that happened was the guy behind the counter approached me and said, "Are you buying for your boyfriend or your brother?"
Oh, that's
And I
BS.
was just like, this could be a reason why. Like, there's just not a lot of it. There's just, I was like, well, actually, I'm buying for me, but okay. I don't know. I think it's just not around a lot. I mean, there's always the days like when you're back at school, if you said you played D&D, then you were the nerd.
Right.
Like, I mean, I was a super nerd anyway, so people knew it about me, but I didn't know other people that played D&D or anything like that. I think it's growing. It's definitely growing.
Yeah.
Which is really nice to see. Really, really good to see. Because it gives so much, and you don't need a lot to do it either.
Yeah. I'm just more curious more than anything else because we've heard, that type of thing where like it's all there. It just for some reason the community just hasn't expanded as it has here in America over the last few years. I want kudos to you for sticking with it and fighting through the negative experience of someone asking you something insulting like that, and that you get to have the books and hopefully, bash those trolls in the face with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I haven't been into a shop for a very long time. Over here, I actually bought quite a few books when I went over to America to see one of our friends we met through the community. So and the experience was completely different.
That's good.
The shop, it was really nice. It was really welcoming. The person in there immediately was just like, "Hi, how can I help you?" And then what was nice was that they wanted to tell me about their favorite games and recommend me their games or what experiences they've had. So I think it's more in the UK. Once it gets bigger, I think people will be more confident to talk about it and just be fine about enjoying it and doing it more and more. So
Great. And the work you guys are doing about trying to include more people who are new to it, I think it's a big part of it. So Yeah, you have a very robust schedule at the Scratticus Academy.
Yeah,
And
three
I
shows
resist
a day.
the I'm not going to call it a sketchy. Oh dang it! I just did.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, 3 shows a day. It's full on. It is. It can be stress. Well, it's not stressful. It's just difficult to maintain because you've got to be in there. You want to make sure everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
We use the safety system constantly. So, and then on top of that, having 3 shows a day. But it's so much fun and it's so rewarding as well when either you see someone that came to play D&D for the first time at the Scrat Academy starts DMing,
Yeah.
and they come and tell us, they're like, oh, we've started our own home game, or we see them on
That's
another
great.
channel to go and DM or play, and it's just like, oh yeah, there we go, that's what we wanted. They feel confident enough now to play with others as well as, just experiencing it for the first time, which is just so nice.
That is super gratifying, and I bet I mean, even as recent as 5 years ago, if someone told me there would be folks like yourself who are like, yeah, we play games all day and we go full time and make our livings doing that, I think people would have laughed in your face if you said something like that. But now here we are in this situation. You're not the only one. There's more and more people who are doing this type of thing full time. Isn't that crazy? Uh-oh. Did you freeze? XSplit broadcaster. Are we down? All around? Ding dong. Hello.
So,
Okay, you're back.
yeah,
Phew. Oh, that was
yeah,
close.
I'm back. I don't know what happened there.
I blame
But
Pelham.
yeah, it's an amazing.
So yeah, just to make sure everybody got what the last question was. That it's crazy to me that the growth of people who can play tabletop role playing games, being professional dungeon masters, being professional players on their channel is really amazing to see. I don't think I would have predicted that.
It's not something I imagined we would be doing. My husband and I both have degrees in very different things.
What's your degree in? Just out of curiosity.
I have a degree in history with modules of archaeology,
Oh,
which
that's
actually I use it.
I was just gonna say that seems pretty on. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband has a degree in engineering. And actually, when we first started, before we went full time, before we did, when it was more just having fun outside of our other jobs,
Mm-hmm.
he did engineering all day, and then he'd come home and play D&D for hours and hours, go to bed for a little bit, and then wake up, engineering, come home, run the channel, D&D. So it was full on, but very, very worth it. So
Yeah, and I think more and more people are inspired by what's happening in streaming, but also through podcasting and things like that. And we're what were some of your inspirations about, like, what made you have the desire to go full time and do this?
just that it made us happy to do it, which sounds really trivial, but it really did. It made us happy to, one, play these games, two, see like just people progress, and it was the idea that we weren't happy in our jobs at all, and it was difficult to be at the stage where we could go full time. So it was effectively we were working 2 jobs for a very long time, but this made us happy, and we thought, if we can do it, let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but if we don't give it a try, we are going to regret it the rest of our lives if we don't try it.
Wow. Do you regret it?
No, not yet. I'm hoping not to at all. But yeah, no, I love it. I love this. I love that I get to DM and play all these games for a living, and meeting all of these new people. Whereas obviously we've got regulars, but also there's a lot of new people that we have on the channel every single week, because we have a lot of viewer games as well, so that people can come in and try different systems, or just give it a go.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice feeling, and it's very satisfying as well.
How long have you been? How long has it been full time for you?
It'll be full time for 1 year in September, so
Oh
not
wow.
yet, not quite yet, but it's progressing a lot faster than we thought, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see a nice community do well, because the community is always growing, and the more and more people we get to meet is amazing. And it's very much a community where you lift people up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't walk over them to get where you want to be, which is something I've always hated about business in general, like in an office or something like that. That's normally a lot of the case. But if someone does well in this community, other people do well. And you just take them with you, you pull them up, and it's a very positive vibe from it all.
That's what me and Shelley we're always about, lifting each other up,
Mm.
as well as members of the community. So, I applaud that. That's more of that. And I think that's really kind of gratifying about what it's baked into the game itself. In some ways, where your party is there to help each other. You don't. One person can't do it all on their own. There's different skills and different backgrounds and races and things that have different abilities that can solve problems, and it's all about trying to support one another to make that happen. So you're doing it. That's great.
Yeah. Well, it's diversity in game and in real life, and
Yeah.
that's how it should be, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening too who are like, hey, maybe I should do that, or I should get into streaming, or I could help support you know as my as a job out there. What and I'm sure you'll get this question a lot more if you haven't already been exhausted by it. But what kind of advice would you give to someone who's starting out or want to develop a channel like what you guys have with Scratticus?
I would say you have to be really passionate about it. You have to throw your all at it, and you have to really want to do it, because there's so much love in the storytelling side of it, but also for the community, because obviously playing D&D involves other people as well. It's not a singular person um, just running their own thing. It's a group game. The DM is also a player.
Mm-hmm.
It's a group of friends coming together. And if you want to run a channel or something like this, be kind, be a nice person, be a nice human being, because if you're not, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're a horrible person, it won't work. And I do recommend the safety system.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm not familiar with the safety system.
Yeah, the safety system, it's popping up more and more, and we use it at the academy. I know, check out Kiana, because she always develops it, and it's amazing. It's the basics of it is you have 3 cards, or just symbols, and it's X, N, and O.
Oh,
And
okay.
if the scene comes up, maybe you're uncomfortable with, or this is a big no to you, like you want out. The X is a stop this scene immediately. Like, we're just going to backtrack. It didn't happen because this scene makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
N is almost like you're approaching a veil. So it's, I'm okay with this scene as long as we don't go into a lot of detail, like a gory scene or something,
Right.
because you don't want to see that side of it. O, what we call it, is that you are showing all the emotions. You might be crying, you might be screaming and raging and screaming into the abyss, but actually I'm having a great time. So do it more. And we use Zoom chat, and we have it behind the scenes so that players don't have the pressure of they have to put it out on stream. They can literally do it in Zoom chat, whether it's private message to Scratch or I, or in the group as a whole. And I mean, we had a scene last week which was very, very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a way of checking in with people, making sure they're okay. Also reaching out and asking someone in private, are you okay? Because you can really get into a role. And to go alongside this sort of safety system, the Academy uses a lines and veils sheet where people can anonymously put like what is their line, what is a veil to them, what is a, like a no-go topic, which the DM can have, and so can the players, so that they know not to approach it, basically. And it makes people a lot more comfortable at the table, and I feel they fall into the role and they really get into the game when they know it's safe.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I've been familiar with the X card, but and also I guess a version of this, but I haven't described to me as the safety system. But just I want to clarify a couple of things, because the line is, this is something you cannot cross, right? And then the veil is something that, we can describe a little bit, but we don't want it to be quite so graphic. Is that what you're
the
kind of?
veil is kind of like, I don't really want to approach this. If we have to for story reasons or whatever, then you don't go into like graphic description. You don't push it. You sort of deal with the consequences of the event that happened in game.
Mm-hmm.
And the line is just straight up no.
Got
and
it.
I mean, we say before every game, if you need to take a step away from the table at any point, do it. You do it IRL, so why not do it whilst you're streaming? It's fine. And we even check on chat every now and then, because I think that adds, like, the streaming adds a whole new element to it, because chat are now involved in the story,
right,
and in the game. So
yeah. I like that. And you said it was Kiana S.
Yes,
on Twitter.
Kiana S.
Yes, I follow her on the Twitters.
Yeah,
I follow them on the Twitters.
awesome.
Yes, exactly. So it's good stuff. I didn't realize that they were the ones who had kind of developed that system. So kudos to them for making that thing. We've used versions of that here on when we've done D&D streams in the past. And you're right. It adds to the trust level of what's going to be occurring at the table, and lets people open up even more and show emotions even more, which is at the heart of any good drama, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think by having the safety system there, people, as I said, feel more relaxed, so they feel they can be more emotional if they want to, because it's I can push myself to this boundary, and I know it won't go beyond that. And if anything, I think it helps develop role players. It makes them want to experiment a bit more, and just like little things. Like, we've had people that have come onto the channel and be like, oh no, I wouldn't dare do a voice for my character. I wouldn't put an accent on. I wouldn't do a voice. And I'm like, oh no, I never ever thought I would. But now I do, sometimes, depending on the character.
Yeah.
So it's just building confidence and showing people how awesome it is, basically, and how much the game can give you.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah. So I love getting that idea out there even more. What about something that everybody wants to be playing as many D&D games or tabletop role game games as possible, but I can imagine there could be some burnout, as well as some confusion as to what character am I playing at this moment. How do you? And this is actually a question that came in from Kyle Gould on Twitter. How do you keep it all straight in your head, and how do you develop all that atmosphere and tension while having so many different, versions of yourself out there?
I actually experienced burnout, I think, in our first season, and I took a step, because I run a photography business as well. So I was doing that, and I think I did 11 games a week, 3 hours each time, which I enjoyed every single one of them. But it wasn't until I crashed I realized, I was like, okay, 11 might be too many. If I, as the DM, creating tension and things like that, I just know the story, I know the world very well. I make sure that I know what's going on, but at the same time giving free rein to the characters. So if I'm the DM and I get some new players come in, I love it when players give me backstory. I love it when they give me as much information about their character as possible, because it allows me to kind of mold the story for them. So they're going on this adventure, which everyone can go on, but it becomes more personal when you can put in bits of their backstory and build tension in that way, because there's some things some players know about other characters that others don't.
Mm-hmm.
I actually ran a D&D dark matter, so basically D&D in space, and it was very, very timey-wimey, and my brain, I don't know how it managed it. I don't know how I managed to keep up, but I had a very, very supportive set of players, and they also went along with all this timey-wimey stuff and liked it. So they could have hated it, like they could have really hated it, and then I would have had to really change it up.
What's and I think I know what you mean by timey wimey, but what would your definition of that be?
There was so much time travel where they came across their future selves, their past selves, parallel universe versions of themselves, and every time they did something, it would affect what happened
Oh man.
in their other. Yeah, I don't know why I did it to myself, but it was really worth it. It was great. It was really, really great. But that was, I think, my big brain melt. I didn't burn out, but I think burning out, you've just got to be very aware of your limits. You've got
Right.
to see them and really recognize them. Because not only that, if you burn out, you're not going to play a good game. You're not going to enjoy it as much. So there's no point pushing yourself too far and then not enjoying the game because you've missed the point.
Yeah.
A bit of.
Yeah, that's an important. I mean, self-care and all that is very important.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes we'll have people be like, "I'm having a really bad week," and I'll be like, "Well, that's fine because health comes first. Take a break and come back next week. There's no problem. I'm not going to scold you for not coming, this week or whatever." But it's healthcare, like self-care and like mental health and everything else. That to us is all part of the safe space. So if you're not feeling up to it, there's no problem about that.
I certainly, I certainly support that. And I guess my follow up question to you then is how do you balance that with the need to grow and make your audience, always know that there's going to be a stream at a certain time because that's you guys are doing this full time. It's not just something you can just I don't my stomach hurts, I can't do this like. So I think that's why a lot of people burn out is because they feel like there's this need
constantly.
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you deal with those two tensions pulling you back and forth?
I won't lie, when we do take a break, both my husband and I have that at the back of our heads, like, oh God, we're not doing something. We should be working. But at the same time, we know we should be taking a break.
Yeah.
We're actually going on holiday for the first time probably in almost a year in July. And as much as we're very excited about it, I know there's going to be that worry of we could be doing this right now.
Right.
We could be doing this. And it's so important to listen to that, to be honest, because and then go, no, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with taking a break. It's the same as like we work a week of all this streaming, and then at the weekend we make sure that we stop. Me more than my husband, but we do stop. We go and do other things, like we'll go bouldering one weekend or we'll go see friends or something one weekend. And even if it's just for an hour or 2 hours, just to step away, because an hour can make a massive difference. Because sometimes we take an hour and we come back with loads of new ideas or just energy.
Yeah.
Basically.
And getting out into the world, you get, you're right, inspired. And then, we've all been seeing the photograph behind you there too. I think going to fantastic places and capturing those images. Can you talk a little bit about what you do for photography?
I'm a photographer when I'm not streaming. And I photograph just couples, like engagement shoots and stuff like that, also weddings. But I like going to locations like this because I say it every single time. It's like being in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
The locations I get to go to every now and then, and they inspire my games. And the other thing I do is a lot of self-love photography. Just like go to an amazing place, spend the day with someone, and take some photos where they feel good about themselves. But half the time I end up talking about D&D with them, and then I have so that luckily the couple I went to this place with, they play a lot of D&D. They play it every single weekend, so they could put up with my just constant talking about it.
That's awesome. So you can take a break, but
but I still talk about it.
Yeah, it still comes in no matter what. Oh, that's funny.
I'm still allowed to talk about it, so it's fine.
Yeah, and a lot of what you're talking about, I feel like, is not. I mean, obviously the D&D and TRPG community deals a lot with burnout and things like this, but it also feels like a very human problem right now with the ability to have the phone in front of us that we were all constantly checking, and having it be work emails popping up, or if you're a lot of your life is through social media or your job is through social media, then it becomes all of a sudden you're working a whole weekend long when you're checking your thing, right? So I think it's really important what you're saying about just taking the time to be out in the world and experience things that are not through a 5-inch by 3-inch screen.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like we said, it is a human thing. We've got these lovely phones that do absolutely everything for us, but like at night, I turn it off so that it's on mute. Nothing can beep through it. No alerts can come through, and I just put it off to the side. So I won't look at it because because working on social media, both for streaming and photography, I'm constantly like, oh, I wonder if that person's got back to me. My phone's just there. I could check it out. And especially because my photography, I work on English time as well. I have the 2 time zones where I'm constantly checking things. But burnout is a very real thing, and it's a very, very human thing. And it can happen to anyone. And everyone needs a break as much as they can be a powerhouse of energy and everything. Everyone needs a break, because you're not going to produce good stuff if you're burnt out anyway. So
I feel like we need to have safety cards for life.
Yeah.
Right? Like this meeting, this is an X. I don't want to be anywhere near this meeting right now.
I'm done now. Yeah. I can walk away from the table when I've had enough. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm out of this job for the next hour. I need a break. I guess that's what lunchtime is for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all super fascinating, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't. Shelly is not here, but she's always talking about how nervous she is to jump back in behind the Dungeon Master screen and start telling some stories. So, what can she's going to listen to this one because she's not on it. So it's really what advice would you give to people, especially folks who are around Dungeons and Dragons and have played before, but may not want to take that leap behind the screen and Dungeon Master for themselves? What can you talk to them about that?
There's no rush to DM. So one, you do, and also you're never going to feel ready to DM, because it's a lot of pressure. As much as you're a player at the table, you feel so responsible for the story, but you're not fully. You have amazing players around the table. Talk to them about it. Even talk about your worries. Be like, I'm worried I'm not going to be able to do this. And it's things like, oh, well, we can help with that. Or prep. My husband would argue with me here. I'm a big prepper. He is not. He is very much doesn't prep much at all. But if I'm honest, when I first did it, I was terrified, and I just took the leap of faith, effectively. And also, there's no rush. Like, take it slow. You don't have to be. It's fun. You're not trying to prove a point to anyone. If you want to give it a go, give it a go. If you don't give it a go. Some people never want to DM, and they don't have to. also everyone has a different DM style. So don't watch someone else and be like, I'm doing it wrong, because you're not. You're not doing it wrong at all. You interpret it how you interpret it. You help create and bring to the group the basics of the story. So there's no rush to do it, and it's great fun once you get going. One of the things we do for new DMs is when we get a new DM in, and most of the time they're really nervous, because I was really nervous when I started DMing, but we make sure we get a group that is usually very experienced, and they know how to role play. They know how to just support that DM.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're nice. They're nice people, and they just want to play. And you don't need to know every single rule
Yes.
of art. There is you if you want to like tweak it a little bit because you're on the edge and you're like, I've forgotten it. You're not gonna be like, you know, especially not in our community, you're not gonna be called out for getting it wrong. Or take the time to pick up the book and look it up if you want. There's no rush. It's just fun. That's it.
I love that. I love all that. I think you had like 4 or 5 really good pieces of advice in there, but the one takeaway is don't rush it. I mean, just you can play if you want, Dungeon Master if you want, you know, and I feel like if you're asking about it, and Shelly does often, you know, I feel like she wants to do it and she just needs to, you know, get to the edge of that diving board and jump in.
Well, and also if it doesn't go to plan, doesn't matter. You never know what the players are going to do.
And that can be the fun of it.
Exactly. If anything, it can create something even better than you thought was coming. And with the whole going slow thing, I ran a game on Monday, and the group is very heavy role play, and it's amazing. They're an absolutely wonderful group, and I adore them. But I could plan a long session, but I know we might not leave like the first scene or something because they'll be so into it, and that's fine as well.
Yeah.
There's no problem with that. I
run a Dragon Heist campaign that, you know, meets twice a month or so, and it's a mixed group of people who have played before. Some have never played, you know, in the last 20 years. And my favorite part about it is they're a little bit like they want combat. They definitely want to beat things up, and then we just end up shopping the entire time. It's because it's in Waterdeep.
I ran an Eberron game, and we did so much shopping in that game. So little combat. When the combat happened, it was amazing. It was great. But
yeah.
We were in Eberron, and every city they went to, we went shopping. They got new outfits. They went food shopping, like, so they had food they just wanted to experience this, like the city, like when we were in Charlotte.
And that's really fun to DM for too, because you get to play all the different shopkeepers. You want to come up and have interesting kind of, you know, voices and sounds and descriptions of what is in each shop. Like I find those sessions really gratifying.
Oh, I love them. I love them because so much of the characters come out as well.
Yeah.
Just in small moments like that, and it's so much fun. And also the other thing as a DM that I love, and again, if you're a new DM, don't hesitate to do it. And that is like sitting back and watching your players. Yes. You don't have to jump in all the time. My husband thrives on awkward silences because 1, he's British, and 2, he says it encourages people to fill that silence. There's something like, oh God, you know, and it encourages players as well to think a bit more, and you're not railroading them by accident or something. Then you can sit back. Some of my favorite scenes are just watching, well, the shopping scenes where I just go, this is here. Go.
Yes.
Have fun.
Do what you
will.
And
they're brilliant. They're brilliant.
I love that. I do love the idea of the awkward silence. It's not something that I'm usually comfortable with. You know, in most social chatting. Yeah.
I hate it. It's not me that likes it. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but there is that instinct to try to fill up time, and you're one of the, you know, pieces of advice I've heard people say that I've repeated is to just listen, right? Just be a good listener as a dungeon master, and Shelly's a really good listener, so I think she's got all the skills necessary.
Yeah, it should give it a go, because listening is one of the best things you can do as a DM, whether it's during game or out of game, because that's the other big thing, is that you need to communicate with your players, DM and players, constantly. There's no problem with stopping a game to ask a question. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to break the story by pausing and asking whatever you want to ask. And even outside of game, I encourage my players to talk to me outside of game. Maybe there's something they want to do in the next session. There's something they want to express or bring up part of their backstory, or maybe they've just got a general question about the world. I'm always happy to talk about that sort of thing, and it builds relationships and confidence between the DM and player as well.
For sure. Well, thank you for taking the time to call in from your busy streaming schedule.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
If people wanted to jump into what is happening at Scratticus Academy, what would be the best entry point, you think?
Oh gosh, I think we run so many different things, but we do have viewer games. We run viewer games every single week. So if people just want to come in and test the water and learn something new, especially if it's a viewer game, there's always going to be shenanigans galore, and it's going to be fun. So the best way to actually get in on one of those is drop Scrat a DM on Twitter, and he'll get you a game. Straight up. It's no one gets turned away. It's yes, we'll get you a game.
That's fantastic. Where on Twitter can they look up you? Can they look up Scrat? What's the best handle to go to?
Yeah, the best one is probably Scrat to go to, which is literally Scratticus _ on Twitter, and I'm White Rabbit Pick, but you'll see me on there. I'm always there, lurking in the background. So yeah,
excellent.
It's the best place to go.
And what's the Twitch channel? So people, I'm sure they'll figure it out. But it's just Scratticus, right?
It's just Scratticus, literally just Scratticus. That's where you'll find us.
Excellent. I won't spell it, but it does have 2 T's in it. Awesome. Well, again, thank you. Always great to speak to fans from across the pond, and we will do everything we can to get more folks in the UK as well as in Europe playing more RPGs. But welcome to, the American community as well, and hopefully we'll make this a whole global movement very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks a lot. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Awesome. Thank you to Alice and everyone at Scratticus for doing great stuff. It is amazing the amount of RPG content that they are putting out on a weekly basis, and I suggest you check it out. It's really great, and I love everything about lifting each other up and making it as inclusive for folks who are interested to find out more about this crazy and amazing and fulfilling hobby. All right, we're going to take another short break and bring back Mr. Jeremy Crawford to do our ins and outs and mid-tros for all of this episode of Dragon Talk. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Thanks.